Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's vlog. Today I'm going to be telling you guys a story about how I acquired this beautiful machine that's sitting right here behind me. Now this car and I have some history, some good, some not so good. I got scammed buying this car. Well, not exactly scammed, but I would say hustled for sure. Needless to say, I'm in love with this car. I completely adore this car. I would never sell it. Like, people have made me offers on it and I still won't get rid of it. But with that being said, I gotta let you guys know the story about how I got this thing. Here we go. Yo, what's up guys? I know by now you're probably trying to find out how I got scammed by the dealership. And just to clarify, the dealership that I got hustled by wasn't a Honda dealership. It was a third-party private dealership, or like small dealership if you will. So it wasn't a Honda dealership. I just want to clarify that. Well, let me explain. We got to start from the beginning. It all started in the summer of 2014. I'm sitting at home working on my other car, my other S2000 at the time. It was a jade green one, a project car that I bought from an owner in like West Palm Beach. And I'm at home working on the car and I get a call from a friend of a friend. Hello?
Hey Scuba, I want to buy a car.
Oh, word? Alright, I got you. Long story short, next day, the car is sold. See, the problem was, once I sold the car, I didn't have a car. So I started car hunting. A couple months go by, and all of a sudden the S2000 bug hits me again. And I start having S2000 withdrawals. If anyone has ever sold their S2000, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you just go through this crazy moment where you're like, I need an S2000, I need an S2000. What happens? I go on the hunt for another S2000. I start looking on Craigslist, I start looking on Auto Trader, I start looking everywhere in my area. Couldn't find any. I was really on the hunt for an AP2 because I had an AP1 prior. And I really wanted an AP2 this time. My last AP1 had little AP2 tidbits like headlights, and it had an AP2 motor in there. But there were just certain things about the AP1 that I didn't like, and there were certain things about the AP2 that I did like. So I went on the hunt for an AP2, an all original factory AP2. Couldn't find one locally at the time, and I was kind of like on a time crunch because I was still in school, right? I was in university and I was commuting every day. Luckily, when the car was sold, it was summer, so I wasn't taking classes at the time, and I had a little bit of time to go car hunting. I go on Auto Trader and I start looking nationwide. I find one in South Dakota, which is the yellow one that you guys have seen. Now, I saw the car and it was listed for a great price. Problem was that it had been in an accident. Unfortunately, the car was now a salvage title, meaning that for me to get it back on the streets, I would have to first fix the car, well, first buy the car, fix the car, and then apply for the rebuilt title, basically. And I'll be making another video on how to apply for the rebuilt title and how to go through that process, so stay tuned for that. If you want to see that, subscribe to the channel and like this video. To subscribe to the channel, all you gotta do is hit that little red button in the bottom right corner of your screen. It should be somewhere over here. Just hit that subscribe button and you'll be subscribed to the channel. That's all you gotta do. Really easy. But a lot of people wouldn't have pulled the trigger on this car due to the fact that it was already a salvage title. However, being the good guy that I am, I chose to save this S2000, and honestly, that was probably one of the best decisions of my life. The S2000 was a dream car of mine. However, let's just say this is where things started to get a little bit hairy. So I called the dealership up and they tell me everything about the car. At this point, I'm really interested. After some negotiations, I went ahead and I sent the deposit for the car. I ended up buying the car right out. Sent the cash, wired the cash to the dealership, and the car was now mine. There was only one issue at this point, and that was getting it to me. Of course, I live in Florida, car's in South Dakota, so I had two options. I could, number one, go pick it up and drive it down here, but that wasn't possible because the car had a salvage title, and I would need to go through the rebuilding process before I could drive the car on the street again. So the second option was to get it shipped down. Luckily, I was able to get it shipped down within a week, and the car was at my doorstep. When the car arrived, things took a turn for the worse. Here's where it got sticky. So from the photos, you can only see the cosmetic damage. However, A car is not only cosmetic, right? There's mechanical parts, there's an engine, there's a transmission, there's suspension, there's drivetrain. There's a lot of parts that make up a car. So, long story short, just to make sure that the car was good, I started asking questions to the dealership. It was not a Honda dealership, it was a third-party dealership. Of course, I don't want to disclose the name because I don't really want to throw anybody under the bus. I just want you guys to learn from my experience so that if anybody is thinking about buying a car sight unseen, or not being able to see a car, buying it online or whatever, maybe you guys can learn from my experience and learn which questions to ask and what to look out for. Let's go. So the first question I asked was obviously if the engine was good. The sales representative assured me that it was, assured me that the transmission was good, the car drove and ran fine. Being an eager kid to own an S2000, I took his word for it. A couple weeks later, the car got shipped to me. I received the car, and that's when I realized things weren't as they seemed. The first thing that I noticed was that the S2000's soft top was ripped in more places than advertised by the dealership. Now the soft top that came with the car had like 4 holes when I received the car. The dealer said it only had 1. Not like I wasn't gonna replace it anyways, but it was literally the difference between getting that soft top repaired and having to get it replaced. Now, getting it repaired would have been a lot cheaper. Getting it replaced was obviously a lot more expensive. So when I bought the car originally, I had a budget set, right? I wanted to buy the car, fix it, had a budget allocated for that based on what the dealership told me was wrong with it, and then I had the fun fund. You guys know what I'm talking about. The fun fund is where you start doing mods to the car that will make the car yours and make the car fun. So now at this point, because there was more damage than advertised, I had to start cutting into the fun fund, and of course that was no fun, guys. So anyway, not a big deal. Soft top was ripped in more places, had to go ahead and get it replaced. That cost a lot more than anticipated. So that was red flag number 1. Red flag number 2, I walked around the car and I realized that one of the wheels was severely damaged. Of course, in the photo, wasn't able to see that. I knew from the wheel damage that there was probably going to be suspension damage, and unfortunately I was right. The whole front right hub was done. Had to replace it. Luckily, I was able to replace it myself, and I saved a lot on labor costs because of that. The front right wheel, had to replace it. The rear suspension, completely done. Here's a picture of what the lower control arm in the rear looked like versus what it should look like. This picture was taken by a friend of mine, Andres at Cap Customs. He helped me out a lot with getting the suspension figured out for this car. Shout out to my homie Andres at Cap Customs. He hooked me up with that hub. If you're an S2000 guy in Florida and you need parts, check him out. As well as my homie Carlos at Label One. So shout out to those guys. Without them, the car wouldn't be where it is today. So big ups to them. Red flag number 3 was when I went inside the car, I popped open the radio tray and there was no radio. I mean, the car was advertised with a radio, however, I never received one. Of course, with all of this being said, I reached out to the dealership and I said, hey guys, this is what's going on. I was supposed to buy the car with a radio, wheel and suspension were supposed to be good, and the soft top is actually ripped in a lot more places than the one spot that you advertised. Problem was that being that this dealership was a small third-party dealership, all sales were final. No refunds, deposit wasn't refundable, and they weren't willing to work with me to cut me a check for the damages that weren't advertised. Now, of course, they're not entitled to do that. That's probably in their contract. Truth is, guys, if you ever want to buy a car sight unseen, then you got to be able to ask questions like this, and also have somebody that you trust to go and look at the car. Even if you don't have someone that you trust to go and look at the car, make sure that whoever you're working with is trustworthy. Ask specific questions. Has the car been driven by anyone at your dealership? Can you send me a video of the car driving? Is it possible for me to get a mechanic to come and look at the car prior to me putting a deposit down on the car? And of course, if you're gonna go this route, make sure it's a mechanic that you trust. Because consider this scenario. You pay a mechanic to go and look at a car for you. Maybe the mechanic wasn't aware of this deal prior to you telling them about it. They go, they see the car, they like it, and then they report back to you that the the car is no good, when in reality it really is good. Now of course that's a shiesty move. It's a business and sometimes people will try to take advantage. So point I'm trying to make is, if you're gonna get a mechanic or anyone to look at a car for you, just make sure that it's someone that you could trust and someone who has your best interests at heart. So after fixing all the cosmetic damage, this is what the car looked like. At this point, I fell in love with this S2000. I saw it come from something that was unexpected, something that really needed a lot of work, to something that was really capable of potential at this point. Now on a lighter note, since getting everything taken care of, the car drives phenomenally now. I am completely in love with the car. I am completely in love with the S2000, and this car made me fall in love with the S2000s even more. I know it might sound crazy, but the S2000 is really a great driver's car. If you ever have the opportunity to drive one, take it. If you ever have the opportunity to own one, I guarantee you won't regret it. It's a really cool car to own, to drive. It's fun. Now I know it's not the fastest car in the world, but I'm telling you, it's a blast to drive. You gotta experience it. So basically, to sum up today's story, I bought a car for a price, had a budget allocated for doing all the fun stuff that we all want to do to our cars, right? Long story short, because the dealership wasn't very honest with me and hustled me, I ended up having to spend an extra like $1,500 to $2,000, somewhere around that range, just to get the car to a point where I could say, okay, now I could start to modify it, just to get it driving back straight. And that's excluding paint and bodywork, by the way, guys. That's excluding paint and bodywork. That we already knew that needed to be done. That was already allocated in the fund. I'm talking about the extra stuff. So point I'm trying to make is, guys, if you ever want to buy a car without ever seeing it sight unseen, just make sure you ask the correct questions. Of course, it's always better to go and see a car and test drive it in person, because sometimes, like for instance in my situation, I ended up having to spend another $2,000, where in reality I could have just bought a car locally for an extra $2,000, right? But sometimes in life you take those chances and they don't work out. Sometimes in life you get handed lemons, no pun intended. Not that my car is a lemon, but when I got it, it was comparable. Sometimes you get handed lemons, and in reality you just gotta make lemonade. And right now I'm so happy that I did, because I am so in love with the car. So basically, I hope that at least one person learned from my experience. And if you ever go through an issue like this where you feel like you get scammed, or you feel like you could possibly get hustled, just remember to ask the correct questions. If you could get someone to look at the car for you, even if you can't, that's always better. Or just find a dealership that you trust. Build that relationship with a dealership that you trust. Therefore, you'll know that they'll have your best interest at heart. Well guys, just like that, we've reached the end of today's video. As always, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope at least one person learned something from today's video. If you did, smack that thumbs up one time for your boy, and subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. So I'll see you guys next time. Peace.